Um, content. How's the new offer going, Kayla?
Oh, great. I just hopped off a call this morning with it and yeah, it's comforting to know that like regardless of the offer you're going into, you know what you're doing.
Oh, great.
So that's like
Go on.
uh yeah, so it's a new offer, but it doesn't feel really new because like I'm doing the same stuff.
Yeah,
Start, finish, objections, like so
yeah.
feels really good.
Good, 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 good.
Right.
So,
Okay, cool. So we are here, Instagram, hello, Facebook, hello. We are here with a very, very good girl of ours, Kayla Dailey, who joined us about, I don't know, around the 15th or so of December,
yeah.
just before
Yep.
Christmas, and
Hmm.
has gone from 20% close rate up to 50% in the last 4 weeks. Now, to be able to do that at the scale and speed that you can do that coming out the back end of Christmas, coming into a new year when people are scared, they're hesitant, they're not pulling the trigger on things because they overspent on Christmas and everything else like that. Just goes to the dedication and the training that you've done over the last 4 or so weeks. What I want to do is I just want to open up the space for you, just so you can give us a bit of an understanding of who you are, and what you sell and how you ended up working with us in the objection box. So the
Yep.
oyster and the world is yours. Go for it, sister.
Yeah, nice. So, I mean, I started in sales about 2 years ago. Like not accidentally, but I started answering emails for an individual and then worked my way up from sales assistant to setter, then closer. And frankly, it was going really well. I mean, in my first 18 months, I made 1.35 million in sales, rocking and rolling. Um, but what happened and why I ended up in the objection box is that it got to a certain point where we expanded the team. And it's kind of that transition from like you're the best person in your high school basketball team, and then you go to college and you're freaking nobody. You're like, so it was a need for my skills to up level. And the training that I got
Mm,
for that, it didn't resonate with me.
right.
Like it was a lot of performance. It was a lot of get on the call and be somebody completely different and do these things that just really weren't aligned.
Right.
But I tried.
Yeah.
I really did. But that friction caused me to start to literally freak out on my calls.
Sure.
And I would start to have panic attacks. I could, keep them down for during the call, but then one day it actually happened during a call and I actually had to get off the call.
Sure.
And I mean, sales has been life changing for my family. So like I think in most situations, if you have that reaction to something, you're like, okay, I'm done with this. Like
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore. But
Yeah.
it had changed our lives so much and it was such a positive impact. I was like, I got to figure this out. Um, and you know this, Bill, like you guys know this. There's a lot of people who are gurus. They've sold a little bit and they'll teach you how to, make 10,000, $20,000.
Yeah.
But I was looking at their stats and I'm like, well, shit, I've already done that.
Yeah.
Like what you're bragging about something that I've already done. So I got to a point where I was lost and didn't know like if anyone could get me back to where I was.
Yeah.
Um, and then I found, one of my colleagues actually recommended the box, and so I just started listening to your stuff, and I was like, this is what I need. I know how to connect with people. I know how to get people to understand they need to make a change, but I wasn't a leader.
Yeah.
And that's what I really needed to do. I was scared. That's why I was freaking out on my calls. So yeah, that's just kind of like how I started at the top, kind of fell, and then got the training that I
Favorite
needed from
stuff.
you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. How did it feel to obviously it manifested and it kind of created that anxiety and that stress and that kind of like fight or flight, I suppose, situations in your life? How often did that happen?
So it happened 3 times on my calls. Yeah, like dead in the middle of talking to somebody, just freeze up. It was embarrassing. Like it's the worst. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was a lot of pressure and it sucked.
What do you sell? People want to know.
So I sell right now I sell Etsy coaching for individuals. So like, Etsy programs. I also sold like courses, like helping people with, developing courses, like just business coaching for B2C.
Yeah, look, it's the biggest market. It's where 90% of all of us are at, and it's the most profitable market, which is the important part of it all. I know you mentioned to me that you were looking around and you were seeing a lot of people that could get you to a certain level. And the funny thing is that you've already been at that certain level. Drake says it very, very funny. He says, imitation isn't flattery, it's just annoying me. And it's funny because when I started the objection box, between starting the objection box to where it is today, we have counted, there's 24 people that have splintered off that to try and create their own stuff. But the issue that you have is when you try and imitate rather than innovate, you end up just being, Chinese whispers down the line. And see a tremendous amount of that. And it's kind of funny because when you can develop people as quickly as we do, and you're a testament to that, people look at it and see that it's easy. And people have this perceived ideology that if he can do it, then I can do it and everything else. But people don't understand what it actually takes to get developed and takes to actually get to the level of success that you have in 4 weeks. What has it taken for you, can I ask?
So that's a great question, because when we first talked and the brand that you guys have created, I actually knew I wasn't ready. Like I knew that I would embarrass myself if I joined you guys at the time that I had came across, because like I wasn't ready to do that work, to put in, and that's a hard thing to admit. But you and everyone that you work with made it very clear, we don't play around. Like, this is not some cute thing for y'all to like huddle in a meeting once and like, jerk each other off with like how great you are. It was like, you're going to come in here, we're going to call you out on your stuff so you get better. And so what I had to do was I really had to sit down and say like, okay, am I ready to do this? Because this is what's going to get me to that level. But I also have to be at a certain point to get there. And so once I felt like I'm done with playing around, my first 2 weeks, like I was waking up at 4 a.m. to make sure I got my training in and did my calls. I wasn't going to be able to do that 6 months ago. So it really takes like an understanding of where you are as a person, because you guys aren't going to do the work for us. Like we have to show up a certain way.
Yeah. Was there any doubt in your mind that I could deliver for you?
No.
Why not?
It goes back to that, like, what'd you say? Like imitation, innovation. Like you were innovating. Like you had such a clear, simple process, and there just wasn't a lot of fluff and bullshit in it. And I had seen so much of that in other spaces. You were very different. And so I was like, this is what it's going to take. Like, this is what I need. So I didn't have any doubts. And then also too, you shove fucking so many testimonials out all the time. So I actually saw people getting the results as well.
Sure. It's funny actually talk about testimonials. I just jumped off a guy, his name is Devin. He's going to be my podcast manager this year and kind of get us on different shows and just create that exposure and all that kind of stuff, which is really important as a business and as a brand. And he asked me about the business, and I said to him, well, just to be upfront about things, we counted 24 new testimonials in the first week of January. And he nearly fell off the chair. He's like, no, like, honestly, tell me. And I was like, do you want me to show you? And he was like, you compete at that level without being at the level yet, and that's very humbling. It's a very, it's a very humbling feeling to feel, and I cherish that because it just shows the amount of work that the guys do on a daily, weekly basis. But it also comes back to what you said about people being ready to meet the standard. I'll never dip the standard. I will never lower myself, and will never lower what I know works to gain income and to gain revenue from people that aren't going to do the work. A big portion of why we've had some relative success in this space, and I'm very humble about that. We're a drop in the ocean compared to other people. And I say that's based on the amount of time that we've been in business, you know. The standard can't and won't drop because my standard won't drop. And if my standard won't drop, then that ultimately means that people have to meet it or they fall out. And it's really important what you said about, 6 months ago, you weren't going to be the person that would ultimately meet that standard, so you knew you weren't ready. What was the defining factor for you that ultimately meant that you were ready?
Well, I wasn't ready to go back to what I knew and make $1,800 a month as a customer service rep. And when that reality started getting closer and closer, when it started to become like, yeah, no, you might have to drop out of this whole like sales thing. I realized like, okay, I'm putting so much energy and keeping myself from having these panic attacks. I'm putting so much energy into trying to maintain the basic level that I was on. I was like, let me just refocus that energy, put in the work to do this.
Oh.
Because, waking up at 4 a.m. to do training is no different than waking up at 4 a.m. with anxiety because I have to get on calls that day.
Yeah.
Right. So like, it was just that moment of like, oh, actually I am putting in the work. It's just not getting me anywhere. That's when I was like, okay, let me do what I got to do financially, mentally to make this happen. And I knew I was gonna have this call with you. Like I said it in my head, I was like, I'm gonna be a success story. I had no idea that it was gonna happen so quickly, but that's the mindset that I was in when I came in. It was just like all or nothing.
There's nothing is like you go back to doing what you don't want to do. And people
Yeah.
don't get to that stage. And the hardest people for me to train are the people that are making 20, 30 grand already.
Mhm.
I'll tell you why. Because when you get to that stage, a large amount of your life is already solid. And it takes, people always say, when you sleep in silk sheets, it's hard to get up at 6 a.m. to go for a run. And that's a great boxing philosophy about like when you make lots of money and you're a world champion, it's hard to keep it, sustain it going forever and always. When you get to that level, that's where most people fall off, and that's where most people hit. That's their tip. And then and I both know that when you hit a tip, there's only one way that you go, and that's back down the way. So a bit like you, that's what happened. You hit
Yep.
the tip, you didn't keep growing, you didn't keep pushing. It takes a very, very somewhat, mentally altered person to keep going, even when they're, when you do things for money and you make money, you got to change up why you're doing it to have impact and all of that kind of stuff. So after I started making money and a good amount of money, it always shifted to how do I help people like Kayla? How do I get this person there? How do I get that person there? How do I put all my team on? How do I make sure that they get rich? How do I make sure that they build a business? How do I make sure that they keep moving the needle? So it's always about readjusting and repositioning yourself, because the ultimate other side of this is that you end up being back, making $1,800 a month, stressed, worried, anxiety, looking at the news, feeling fucking depressed, living on shit food. And that's where people want you to be, because now you're not productive. Now you're not taking ownership, and now you're not actually being a surplus and driving the economy and driving, your environment, and that's the important part. Now, let me ask you this. Getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning, whether that's through anxiety or getting up through sales and training and development, what was the mental shift that you had to shift into to be able to do that?
It was more the shift really was like, who's not doing that? Like who are the people who are not waking up and dedicating their entire lives to this? And I look at what they have and I was like, okay, I don't want that. So that was the biggest thing for me, is starting to look at, and I mean, I've just got here, like 4 weeks ago. And so like looking at the people who have been around you guys in that space for a period of time, I was like, those are the people that I want. And to your point, it wasn't the money anymore. Like, yeah, 10,000, 15, $20,000 a month, like, is great. But like, these people were developing as individuals, as people. They were better, you know, they were better husbands, wives. They just like were better in general. And I was like, that's what I want, because I've made the 10,000, I've made the 15,000, and I'm miserable and I hate it. And so that was really the shift that I needed, of like, okay, who's not putting in that type of effort? What do they have? And then the people who are putting that in, that's exactly what I want. So that was really the biggest thing for me.
They always say success leaves clues, and anyone that
Yeah.
you listen to will always tell you what they're doing without actually telling you. All you gotta do is open up your eyes to see it. The problem that most people have in this world is that people want to be saved. They don't want to be shown.
Yeah.
They want to be saved.
Yeah.
Because all of the people that we look to, all of the people that we inspire to be like, whether that's Patrick Bet-David, whether that's Grant Cardone, whether that's fucking, I don't know, Andy Frisella, who's a big hero of mine, Ed Milet, another big hero, you know, the Hermosis. They'll all tell you what they're doing without actually telling you. All you got to do is open up your eyes to see it, you know, and not a lot of people want to actually see it, because if you see it, then you have to consciously make the decision whether you're going to go all in or not. And that's what people want to do, because if you have education and you have knowledge and you have exposure, then you logically, emotionally, spiritually, financially have to make a decision. And most people don't want to make a decision in life. That's why they end up stuck. It's not because they couldn't make a decision, it's because they don't want to. You know, that's the key. We live in a free world. You know, we always bash on about the freeness and that we have and all of this great stuff. But people only have freedom if you actually use it, you know, rather than it being used against you.
I think that was the difference between when I wasn't ready. Like, when I first talked to you, like, I wanted to be saved. I wanted you to give me the magic phrase, the magic whatever, to fix it. And you've done such a good job of having a brand and people around you that say, that's not, we don't do that here. And so having that understanding of like, when I join this program, nobody's going to hold my hand. Like, nobody's going to say like, you know, good job when I didn't do a good job. And I think my ego just wasn't ready for that. But I still knew that it was the right choice. Like I said, just had to do some soul searching and really decide if I wanted to commit to it. And that's really what being like, I mean, you know, elite, like, that's the word. Like, that's the difference between other programs and being elite in this, is that you got to do it. You got to put in the work.
Yeah. And it's funny actually about that, you know, pat in the back and stuff like that. Everyone that does something really good in life expects a pat in the back. I look at things now and I'm like, what the fuck do you want me to say well done for doing your job?
Right.
Like, do you go out and thank the bin man because he empties your bin every day? You know? Do you know, thank your trainer because he beated your ass into the ground every day? Yeah, you do, because that's what service is, a respectful thing, of course. But like, people want to be, you know, celebrated for doing the bare minimum these days, you know. And I always say to people, when you actually stop looking for external validation and you start looking at it internally, that's when you keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. For me, I get more embarrassed when people say, well done now. So I'm like, well done. We haven't even started, homie. We're barely even touched the surface, kid. You know, and that's the kind of mentality that I have. That's the mentality that all the team has. You know, because where we're going and what we're doing and what we want to bring all you with us is like, we want to change the whole world. We want to change everything that salespeople have. You know, because I've looked over the last, you know, since I started in 2021, and obviously a large amount of time before that, you know, I think salespeople lost their zip, they lost their confidence, they lost their, you know, strength, and it's a reflection of how the world is looking in this in this period of our lives in 2024. You can't say boo to a ghost without somebody getting offended. And I think salespeople are a reflection of, you know, how society is at this moment. You know, everyone feels entitled, everyone feels that they owe you something, and, you know, everyone feels that like the world is out to just help them. You know, the world is not out to help you. The only thing you help is yourself, you know, and that's what we want to give back to people. That's what we want to give people, every person that works with me and the team. The only thing that I want to make sure that person feels is that it's on you. Look around, there's no one coming, my friend. It's on you. You're in deep waters here. There's no one around. There's no boat. There's no life jacket. There's no fucking ringy. They ain't nothing coming, buddy. You got to swim your fucking face off to even get a chance to win. You know, and that's all you'll ever get. Is you'll only get a chance. You'll only ever get a slither of hope to be able to be successful. And not everybody gets it. You
A
know?
small sliver,
Yeah.
honestly.
All you get, literally, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people trying to go through one hole every day.
Mhm.
You know, you can imagine everyone is trying to get to the top, and there's only a certain amount of people that want to get there, and there's only a certain amount of people that are going to do all of that. So the mentality for you that I want to make you have, and I want to make sure that you leave here today with, is that every day for the next month, stack the months, 4 a.m. every day you get up, and because that's the consistency. And it's funny about what you said about, you know, when you came first, you just wanted to be saved, and I didn't save you. When I started the objection box, and this will kind of give you a concept and understanding of this. When I started the objection box, I started a 3-month process. And what tended to happen was I did exactly what you asked for. I saved all of those people. And I brought them from 6 to 26 and so on and so forth. And all of those people that you see now are those the people that are plodding around and doing all of that kind of stuff that you were talking about I'm going to help you do this and I'm going to help you do that. No, you're not. But anyway. So I saved all of those people. So then I brought it from 3 months to 4 months, thinking that I would change. Because if I just kept people getting more exposure, building more habits, more routines, more structures every day, that it would change. So then I brought it from 3 to 4, and now it's gone to 6, and now it's gone to 12. And the reason being, Kayla, is because most people just want the words. Most people do not want to do the internal work that ultimately is going to build the person that is ultimately going to be able to pull that amount off the table every single day, every single week. And that ultimately started with me. I saved too many people at the start. Now, granted, we got endless case studies, testimonials, as you said, rammed down people's throat every single day. The difference between the case studies at the start to now is now I see leaders, now I see winners, now I see people who are willing to go all out, now I see people who are willing to go all in, now I see people taking care of their fitness, their health, their relationships, their investments, you know, they're doing things that ultimately is going to sustain them long term. The people that I started with, if I brought them all now in, I don't know, do they have the same habits and routines that you guys have? That's the difference. That's what I needed to build in order to produce for you guys. So at the start, my concept was just going to save them all, get them all a tremendous amount of results, give them all the word tracks, and I'll go to market. The difference now is that it's sustained results over and over and over again because we're building people rather than building machines. And that's a big difference that we've kind of allowed ourselves to grow into. But also, we've been in the business for 18 months. What you did at the first month compared to what you do at the 18 months has to be innovative. You have to keep getting better. You have to keep going to market with new stuff and new standards, you know, and that's the key to all of it. You know, that's what we're looking at, you know, is the standard and is the consistency of the results that we're producing now, which is important.
Yeah, it's obvious, like that leadership factor was a huge appeal for me because I mean, I'm a pleasant person. Like people connect with me when it comes to actually like being on calls. Like I knew what to do, but I wasn't leading people. I wasn't like what is it you say, like putting the responsibility on them to like change their lives, you know, like listen, this is you. Even the way that we communicate with them, like, oh, we got to do this now. I mean, you don't have to do anything, right? Like, but that was that leadership that I was missing, and which would cause me to crumble during a call is because I wasn't a leader. So I can definitely see the difference of like if you just give people the words but don't develop the person, like it's just going to fall flat. So yeah, that's a huge difference that is played a factor in why I went with you guys as opposed to like, you know, all the other
Anyway,
stuff out there.
it's funny actually you say that because I take lessons out of everything now because when you seek and you want lessons and you want education and you crave it, you look at everything that you've had in your life and you look at everything as if to say, how can I get something out of that? But when you were talking about that, it just brought me back to school. You know, when you were in school and you were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age, you couldn't understand how to work the maths, how to work the Irish language that we used to have to do, or how to work this, you know, subtraction, whatever it may be. And what tended to happen was your parents actually got so frustrated, they actually did what for you. They just gave you the answer.
Yeah.
But they took away the essence of what the learning was actually supposed to give you. Because you have to go inside you and you have to search it and you have to find it and you have to build it and you have to fucking create the answer for yourself. And if you don't, then you're never going to take away what is meant for you, which is the education and the learning concepts. But the biggest thing for you guys, and the biggest thing for me as the owner of the rejection box, and you know, hopefully someone that people look to as helping them create better lives, is it'll always come back to the outcome. In school, I couldn't give a flying fuck how this fucking mountain was formed and how this fucking, you know, cloud over here was going to dictate it was going to rain over here, or how I could get the square root of fucking some sort of square. Couldn't give a flying fuck. But the difference now is that if I figure shit out in the sales world, I figure shit out in the business world, I figure shit out in the marketing world, I figure shit out on how to lead the team better, that is a direct correlation to a ripple effect of hundreds of people.
Mm-hmm.
That to me means everything. That to me means more than any amount of fucking shit that I learned up until I was 23 years of age. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Because the outcome
100%.
has to be really important. And the outcome means that the better you get, the more time, energy, commitment, focus that you give to your sales and to the dedication that you have for it, the better your family is going to be, the better your relationships are going to be, the better you're going to be in terms of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. So the direct correlation to being very, very good at sales and to pouring training into sales is you're going to have a great life. And you're going to have a life that if you weren't in sales, you wouldn't be able to have. And that's what gets me out of bed every morning. That's what makes me study. That's what makes me consistent. That's what makes me turns up all the time for you guys. So it makes me pour into the team, because if I can pour into everybody and we're all pouring at one time, we're going to harvest a tremendous amount of people. And that's the key for me, you know?
Yeah.
How does your family feel about you 2.0? I'm not going to give you the whole 2.0, but I'm going to say to you the start of 2.0, because I'm very conscious about giving you more than is needed and just. So that's important. But for the last 30 days, how has things been different at home?
It's been incredible, because I think my husband has always been like, he would get frustrated because he knew I could do this. He knew that I'm capable of this, but my confidence was just at the floor. And so it would cause frustration, because I'd be like, I can't do this and all this nonsense. And he's like, you're literally doing it. Like, what is the problem here? And before I even remember crying and being like, I can't do this, I can't do this, because I got off of a call that didn't go well. Like, I didn't lead the person. They were like, okay, this was kind of a waste of time. And he was like, didn't you get a piff earlier today? Like, it became that even the good was causing like friction and problems. And so now I do my calls, come home. It's like seamless. There's not this friction. And even in December, where I hit 51% close rate, I didn't actually realize that until I looked at my numbers, because the month was so smooth. Like, there was no chaos, there was no like feeling of drowning. And so I had no idea that I had taken that many calls and I had closed that many deals, because it just seemed like, regular like day. This is a part of what I do now. And so like home life there's no stress. Like, it's just so seamless. And we homeschool our kids, so they see me, being all frazzled and things like that. That affects them. So now, not only am I can focus on them. I can see them and pay attention to them. So it's just everything that it was supposed to be when I had this idea of like, I'm gonna go into sales. Like, the money's there, the confidence is there, and now I can just simply show up every day this way, and it continue to benefit us.
Yeah. That's a big thing that we've always wanted was to get you to a place where you're financially secure so you can actually live your life. A big issue that you Americans have is that you're all financially fucked. Straight up. Because you all live in red, you know. And for you Americans that don't know what I'm trying to say there, you're all living on credit. You're all living in overdrafts. You're all living, you know, paycheck to paycheck. I think the average amount of money that any American has saved up is less than $5,000.
Yeah, less than that for sure.
So like how can you ever, you know, feel safe? How can you ever feel secure? How can you ever feel, you know, that you're okay when all you see on the news, all you see around the grocery store, all you see around your family, your friends is negativity, pain, problems, sorrow. We're doomed, we're gloomed, this war in fucking here, this war in here. Look at the border situation, look at the inflation situation, look at the fucking rise in this, that, and everything else in between. And when you're not financially secure, you are susceptible to all of that because that's what you surround yourself with. But when you are financially secure and you're in a good spot, you can do things like go to work, homeschool your kid, and have a seamless fucking separation. Because you know at the end of it all, when the day is done, you can pay your bills, you can have nice things, you can take your kids out, you can go and have an ice cream, you can go on holidays, you can pay everything that you need to have, you can go to the nice grocery stores, and that's life, in my opinion. Life for me was never about Rolexes and fucking, you know, mansions and this, that, and the other stuff. That was never my goal. My goal was to always be financially secure. So when we didn't have it, we did have it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's that peace.
Yeah, we like Jack will tell you, my mother worked her entire life, like worked her face off. Like, and it's still does. Like she's over 60 years of age, and like even to the point where it's an argument if we ever even ask her to take a day off or anything else. Like to the point where it's like, no, I'm just going to keep going. You're like, okay, you know. But we had when we were growing up from 2000s up until 2008, we had like everything that we wanted. You know, I remember one time we got a PlayStation, a phone, you know, all the games, all the accessories, boots and everything. We must have spent, I don't know, £1,500 per child. There was three of us in it. And I remember 2008 hit hard Ireland, like completely. Celtic gone. Like that boom of like there was money everywhere. Everyone was buying. We had a pub. Every night was full. We were just, you know, my mother was good. And I remember she made financial decisions that ultimately meant that she invested in properties. And when the 2008 crunch happened, you couldn't give away properties. So let's say you bought a property for 200 grand. By the time 2010 came around, that property was worth 60. So you're in negative equity of 140,000, paying a mortgage back of negative equity. And she lived the whole way through that. And I remember, and I'll too clear as this day, this is why I've always wanted to be financially secure. I remember the stress, the anxiety, like the pain that she had to go through on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to make sure that she provided for three kids and to keep a business operational and to make sure that the bills were paid on time. I'll never forget that. Like that's a big cornerstone for me is to make sure if you make it, you keep it. If you keep it, you invest it. You know? And that is a big portion of why I do it. Because I don't want other families to go through what we went through. And it wasn't my mother's fault. She done all the right things. She invested her money wisely based on what she was told on her education. But unfortunately, that cycle crashed. And that 10 years completely wiped her out to a stage now where she's on the up again, but that wiped her all out. And the whole purpose of what I'm trying to say to you is this, is that if you're financially secure and you're financially capable and you have a skill set that ultimately means that you never have to go into the negative, that's a peace of mind that ultimately not a lot of people get to have in this life.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to clarify too, that's not just sales. like you talk about developing the person,
Yeah.
that's important because beforehand, like I was in sales, I was making that money and I had no discipline. I had no, like it came in and went out.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that the reason why some people get into this, they make a bunch of money and they're still living that paycheck to paycheck, that scarcity, is because they haven't developed as people.
Yeah. Yeah.
They fell into something that made them a bunch of money and now they're still chasing that. And there was one of the calls that I was on where I was asking about that, and Jack and the other Jack and some other people chimed in of like, helping with finances and being disciplined. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like the overall person is what you're going to get in the objection box in terms of developing. And so I appreciate you sharing that story because it just reminds me of why you have to be at the top and at the A level, because you can lose it if you are not that type of person. So yeah, it's just, top to bottom, everything to support you and having the peaceful life that we want for our families.
Yeah. I see people like we've had people go from making zero to over 40,000 a month. Like unheard of, like stupid. I also see the same people buying 4 different cars. No, don't get me wrong. You want to do that, you do that. Like that's your own prerogative, and that's completely fine, and that's respectable. You do whatever you want to do with your money. I'm very fortunate. I've been on this entrepreneur journey from the age of, I don't know, I started my first job at 16 years of age. When people in Ireland, in my hometown, were doing exams, I was working. Jack will tell you that. I was out working in summer and Christmas because my mother looked at it and was like, you're not like this way inclined. I remember we sat down and she's like, look, you have an opportunity here to go and make some money. You're not going to be educated. And what I mean by educated is you're not going to be a doctor. You're not going to be an accountant. You're not going to be a solicitor. You're not going to be anything that you need education for. What you are is you're a fucking grafter. And you want to do things and you want to make some money and you want to get after it and you want to fucking produce. So my mother knew that at the age of probably 15, 16 when we got a knock on the door from a man who needed a hand in Christmas and summertime. So when people were doing exams of 15, 16 years of age in Ireland, I was actually out working. And I saw the benefit of working and production. And when I was also very fortunate to go to military. I was also very fortunate to have, a family nucleus where there was a lot of support. There wasn't a lot of like, oh my God, you fell over, let me kiss your knee. It was oh my God, you fell over, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Okay, get up and go again. You know what I mean? And that's how we lived our life. But what it also gave you was a sense of structure. I had like my first little girl at 21 years of age. Had my second one at 27, 28. So by the time now where like I can go and buy whatever the fuck I like, I don't need it. I don't want it because the validation isn't necessarily there anymore because I passed that stupid period in my life where you're buying shit just to impress people that you don't even like. I like about 6 people in my life. I have a lot of acquaintances, a lot of people that are around me, but I only like about 6 people. And I don't mean that I don't like people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As you get older, as you will tell me, you just have a small circle, and that's okay. Doesn't mean that you don't like people, but you don't want them in your inner circle. And I passed through that, whereas like now as a salesperson, as a business owner, it's not about how much I can make. It's about how much you keep and how much you give. For me, I mean, how much can I give back? How much can I get out? Like today, for argument's sake, investing in a podcast manager so the team can get more exposure, so the team can get more and help more, and we can do more for other people. So it's all about like the next steps, and it's not about making it and spending it, because that will lead you to bigger problems. Because if you can't control your money when you're making 1,500 a month, you ain't gonna have the fucking know-how to make it when you're making 10. You're gonna use the exact same mentality that you had at 10 that you had at 15.
Yep.
Okay? That's the issue. Jack, you got any questions Any thoughts? Anything you want?
Yeah, look, I suppose the big takeaway from Kayla's interview here today is your humility. Okay. That was probably the big one that stood out for me already. Um, Identifying that you did have a problem in terms of your skill set and your level and where you were at, but then having the humility to actually say, you know what, I'm actually not at the level yet. You know, this isn't for me right now, but it's something that I want to work towards, right? And it's an issue that we see day after day after day, all right? People think that they are or they have enough in the tank to do the job that they want to do without having any of the social proof, without having any of the skills in place. So I think having the humility to always want to learn, but to know that you're not in a position where you need to be or want to be. All right. And that's why you obviously joined the objection box to help out with other things as well. Obviously, your confidence, your anxiety started to go away. The more confident you got on the calls, the quicker it flew or in the flow state you were, you know, that's just a byproduct of being really good at what you do. It's like everything else. Like making money is fantastic, but you're not going to make money until you're good at what you do. It's all byproduct. The only thing that ever gets you to where you want to go is your work rate and your skill and your knowledge. All of the rest of it is all secondary. It's all veneer. It's all bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? You can't get one without the other, you know? So I think if anybody is listening to this, especially people in the community and probably a lot of people that are in our programs, have the humility to understand that maybe you don't have the skill right now. Maybe you can't get the role because you maybe aren't at that level yet. And that's the big one, not being at that level, right? But when you do get that level, that's when all the doors open up for you, you know, doubling your close rate, you know, in your own personal life with your family, it's a lot easier now. Your anxiety is starting to go away. These are all byproducts of actually buying into yourself and obviously being really good at what you do, you know. Um, like the objection box isn't just all about sales. And I think you know that now, you know. We help people. People is their job, you know what I mean? We help them in all the facets of their life. Like making money is fantastic, all right? That's great. But it's the stuff that you learn in with us, like having the discipline as well, and your confidence going way up. And then obviously that will broadcast into your own personal life, into your family's life and stuff like that as well, right? Which is really important for us because it's not all just about making money, right? It's about being secure, it's about being happy. And that's the main, I suppose, mission for the objection box is to help as many people as possible. Yeah, if we can do that by making more money for people, that's fantastic. You know, but
Yeah.
main thing for us is to help people out, you know, and give them the solutions and give them the tricks and the tips, you know. And it's not an easy ride. You're gonna fucking come in, there's no sugarcoating it, you know what I mean? That's what people need, you know. Sometimes that's what people need. And others, when they do need an arm around the shoulder, they definitely get that as well. You know what I mean?
Big
Um,
area to back up on that is that, and this is really important that I want people to understand, is that we don't have it all figured out. Me more so than anybody, you know, me more so than anybody in the entire industry. I ain't got it all figured out. I got a tremendous amount of demons. I got a tremendous amount of shit that I got to deal with, you know. But a big thing for me is humility, and a big thing for me is knowing that you're trying and that you're willing and that you're wanting to be better. And that's the key, you know. And some days you're going to fail. And God knows I failed a tremendous amount in my life. You know, I'm 31 years of age and I've probably failed more than I've ever won. But the biggest thing for me is every failure that I've always tried to be better on the back end of it. Last question for you, Kayla, because I know you got to get out of here. Where do you get your motivation from? Do you get it from positivity or do you get it from the negative space? Do you get it from the light or do you get it from the dark?
Definitely from here. I mean, if you asked that question a little while ago, I probably would have said the light, but like, I think because I got into the ground before joining, I am more so, I get it from like not wanting to be in that space anymore. So it's not, like I said, you know, the money, great. kind of the level of, a bit of status that you get from it, like awesome. But I never want to be in the situation as a parent
Mhm.
of my life being okay. The best way to describe it is like when my kids ask me for something, I want to be the reason why I say yes or no.
Uh-huh.
And in the past, it was, oh
You-
no, you can't have that pony. And it's like, mommy doesn't have the money to pay for the pony, or we don't have the bandwidth to do X, Y, and Z. So I think like just always keeping away from that negative space is more so of like what I feed on now. I want to be in charge of the decisions that I make as a parent, as a wife, and all of that. So that's what, motivate. No, I mean, I don't know who wants to wake up and do the things that we do in the box like every day. Like genuinely, we just do it because like we know it's keeping us from where we've been, and allows us to grow. So I don't know if that answers the question, but like really that's my motivation.
It does. Yeah, and people, it's not about I want to make a gazillion dollars. It's more
Yeah.
when you become a parent, it's more about I want to make sure that my kids don't get exposed to the shit of the world,
Yeah, there you go.
you
Yep.
know, and I want to
Mhm.
make sure that my kids, you know, we have an option. And it's really
Yeah.
important what you said is what I took away from that is before you didn't have an option.
Right.
You know, when your kid says, I want another ice cream, and you're like, yep, you're four deep already today, kid. And you're like, you know, if you don't have any more money to get more ice cream, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But if you actually can and will and could, it's a different story. Now you got a choice. And I think that's
Yep.
what people want in life. People want choices and they want options and they want to have flexibility and they want to be able to if they want to. But the
Hmm.
problem a lot of people have and a lot of salespeople have is that they don't have that. And that's how you operate and that's how you work out of a scarcity mindset. And that's where that anxiety comes from. And that's where that fear comes from. And that's not the right place, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I learned this about myself last week. I operate out of negativity. When people
Mhm.
doubt me and people doubt what we do and doubt who I am and doubt what I produce, that gives me more than 45 testimonials back to back. So
Yeah.
I always look at it on like now for the last 5, 6 days, I'm asking everybody, what gives you the ick? What gives you the tick? How does things move? How do you get that fucking bite in between your teeth? And I've always had
Mhm.
it actually. I've always had it, but I actually just realized it over the last couple of weeks. It's actually manifested itself. I'm like, something happened and someone was
Mhm.
talking with one of my team. And I just went boom, straight to defense. I was like, I'm gonna rip your head off. And it's like, I was actually joking. I was like, nah,
Mhm. You don't play that.
I don't play that. I don't play that game. And Jack will probably tell you that I've got into more fights on the field fighting everybody else's battle than I ever got fighting my own. And I probably got more trouble in my life fighting everybody else's battle than I ever got in my own. Everywhere, everywhere and anywhere, in every shape and form. I've always been the protector for some magic reason I don't know. I got to figure that shit out. But yeah, so it's weird. So I always look at it as like, what gives you the drive? Um, every interview that people see, and we've been, fault of this as well as, what would you say to people if they were sitting on the fence and wanted to join? I'm not going to do that because I couldn't give a flying fuck. All right. What I would say to you is answer me this. Why would somebody not want to join the objection box rather than actually join the objection box? Who won't be a good fit here and who will be a good fit in our
Mhm.
word, my word, and the team's word? That's a better
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the theme too of what we've talked about is like people who want to be saved, people who want all of the glitz and glamour of this industry and sales,
Mm,
without having a true understanding of what it's going to take, not only to hit that, but maintain it.
mm,
Because I wasn't some, struggling to make $3,000 to $5,000 sales rep. Like I was making it, and it it wasn't working. And because the reality is you have to maintain it, and to maintain it you have to be a type of person, you have to have a certain mindset, you have to have a certain work ethic. So people who are just really only wanting to make the money and have the glitz and glamour, like, they're not gonna survive. I actually wrote in my journal the day Jack signed me up. I was like, I'm gonna study my ass off because I'll be damned if I get embarrassed on one of these coaching calls. Like, I knew that like it was going to take a lot from me in order to make this work. And so people who aren't ready for that, just don't embarrass yourself. Get ready, do the soul searching that you need to do. This is what's gonna get you to where you want to go, but like you got to be there. You got to be ready.
Sure. Right, Jack, last thoughts. We're out. Any last words of wisdom?
Let go
And thank you for
of the
coming for the
ego.
ride. We don't do this that often, so thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. If you guys have questions, let me know. I'm going to be here for another 2 minutes and then I'm out. Go for it, Jack.
I don't know, did you ask me a question or did you ask
I
everybody
did
else?
ask you the question, but I'm talking over here.
I think the biggest take from this is letting go of the ego. Let go of the ego. That's literally it. I read a good book at the start, just when I signed up with the objection, not when I came to work here, I suppose. It's called Ego is the Enemy. Completely changed my mindset, completely changed my outlook on why things didn't work out for me, or why things were tough for me, and why it just took away the why poor me attitude, if you want to say that. I would recommend everybody in the sales to read that book. I think it's Ryan Holiday actually writes the book.
Here.
But Ego at the End. Red book.
Ego is on top. It's on top.
Ego's on
There we
top.
go. This is the universe telling you guys
There it
this is
is.
the book you need to read. Ryan Holiday.
Yeah.
Fantastic book. He has a quote in it. You can be here to be somebody, or you can be here to do something. Right? So you can either be somebody or you can do something. And you can't do something if you're trying to be somebody. All right. That's more based on a team base, but it was a good quote that I thought was.
We're on studio view, guys. So this is the book he is referring to. It was literally on top of all of my books. I have about 50 books there. And
I didn't know that.
All right.
This is our mindset as twins. We connect.
Ego is the enemy. There you go. Look at all of it. I've read that back to front. Okay, guys, we're out of here. Kayla, I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
See you later on.
Of course.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.